And at the end of the day, even if it upsets you, why would you want to do something that gives a criminal $20,000 payout, a $30,000 payout, or $1 million payout? When if you had just stayed a little more knowledgeable, you could have avoided that and successfully prosecuted that person to the fullest extent of the law.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Good Karma podcast, where we are looking at important risk management issues for police, not only for officers and public entity employees, but also for the public, so you can understand what's going on in police law enforcement these days. My name is Rob Kramer. I'm the executive director for the California Affiliated Risk Management Authorities, or CARMA. CARMA is an organization that provides risk management resources to all of our members, as well as coverage. So if there's a liability against a police department, our organization covers that. But our focus today is on police risk management to try to reduce those liabilities and help people understand what's going on out there. So I'm joined as always by Rob Patton, our police risk management consultant. So I'll Rob, turn it to you.
Appreciate that, Rob Kramer. I might just refer to you as Kramer.
Okay.
But there we go. So anyways, everybody, hello, my name's Rob Patton. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Sacramento Sheriff's Office. Upon my retirement, I transitioned to post, where I worked in a variety of positions until Rob Kramer came a-knocking with an opportunity to be a law enforcement consultant with CARMA. After doing some research, I thought to myself, all right, wait a second here. Post is a huge ship trying to turn that thing, just, it takes a minute. But here at CARMA, we're able to effectuate change a little faster from our perspective. We serve 136 law enforcement agencies in California, which equates to approximately 5,000 officers. And our mission is to provide training, resources, and support to those officers so that they can make some sound decisions in the field and hopefully reduce liability. We're excited for our show today because we got a special guest, Jason Lewis. He's the CEO of the Briefing Room, which empowers law enforcement supervisors by giving them the tools they need to reduce liability, improve morale, and maintain community support, which is so important in this industry. So super excited to have you, Jason. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Glad to finally see your podcast and be a part of it.
Yeah, we're super stoked. It's this is season 1, of course. We're going to be dropping them in the next 2 weeks, so be on the lookout. Next week we'll start doing some marketing for that. So we're teeing it up.
I got a new pen so I can give autographs and stuff. So I got that sitting right here.
It's funny you say that because, from my position, our job is to seek out some modern, progressive training that, the field is open to, right? And where you get positive feedback. And so I've been sizing you up for a few years, basically since you went online, and watching you grow, and then your influence kind of spread throughout the state, and now it's outside of the state. And so last year, you and I had made contact and developed a bit of a relationship, and things have evolved since. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, I think it's important that our audience knows who you are. So why don't you start from the beginning, man? Like where you're born, where you come from, what agency you worked at, and then just give us an overview as to with what was going on in your career.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jason Lewis. I was born and raised in Southern California in Ventura County. And I was a police explorer starting at the age of 16. And so very early, I knew exactly what I wanted to do in life. There was never any question in my mind that I was going to be a police officer. And that's exactly what I did. So at the age of 19, I was in the police academy. And then I went into the jails from there. And I had a great career. I loved being a police officer. I just retired 3 months ago, but I still miss it. I retired as a patrol sergeant. The reason I started the briefing room was because at one point I was assigned as our training coordinator for our agency, for our regional training center. And throughout a good portion of my career, I've always taught use of force and defensive tactics. So I've always been into training. And I also sat on our use of force review board for a very long time. And so something I would notice is that the same problems we'd keep seeing the same problems or not the performance we would want to see through body cam footage when we were reviewing incidents. And as the training coordinator, there was really no mechanism for us to fix those things. And so I started thinking, what if I sent out like short training clips to the agency, like just film them instead of focusing on making these big productions, just a super quick down and dirty short clip. I call them quick training clips. They were 90 seconds long. To the agency. And it was pretty cool. We had people like Chuck Liddell come in, Boz Rutan, some high profile MMA people did some videos and stuff like that. It was pretty successful. And we had.
Hold on. Did Chuck Liddell play a bad guy? What did he
Well, one of the issues with having people like that on there is they're really great, but they're not law enforcement specific. So they may start saying things that you can't do in law enforcement, and so you have to be cautious with that. But those were very successful. Other agencies started asking me if they could get access to them. But I also knew that when I left training, nobody was going to carry that on because it was a lot of work to put those together. At the same time, I just really developed I got really sick and tired of having arguments with people like this issue would come up and can we do that or not, or how do we enforce this restraining order, or what can we do and cannot we not do. And the way we traditionally resolve those things is arguing back and forth. I've done this in the past. No, I've done this and it was successful. I don't know, let's call this person and see what he has done. And I started to realize, wait, there's case law on almost all of this stuff, and it almost always gives us the actual answer. And so I started learning how to research cases, how to read them. It's not as easy as it seems, but over time, it becomes pretty simple, actually, once you learn the structure of it and how the court speaks and all that stuff. So that really opened my eyes to how much we don't know in law enforcement, how much we are expected to know by the courts, but how much we don't know because our training does not cover 1% of the information that we actually need to know when working. And so that's the genesis of the briefing room, was like, hey, we're not the only ones in this situation. I think agencies all over the nation are in the exact same situation. We're tired of boring training you go to for 8 hours and you don't learn anything. You don't come away with anything. No offense, Rob Patton, but 2-hour-long post videos that you're forced to sit through that aren't really training you in what you need to know. It's just checking a box. And so it was like, I think we can build something that is actually useful. That's an internal effort within law enforcement. That's like, we don't need the state to tell us what we need to do. We don't need anyone telling us. We know what we need to do. And we're going to build a platform that is truly designed from the ground up to be what we really need to be successful in this career. And that's where we started the briefing room, to make it super easy for supervisors at each agency to do training for their team in one simple concept every single day. So all supervisors to do is log in, press play, and they have all the resources they need to build a successful, exceptional team, whether they're working patrol, investigations, traffic, or anything else within the agency.
there are a couple of things that come to mind as you were speaking. The first was, we connected and rolled out some in-person training with you and your team. And, I like how you kind of started off and then you go a little deeper into how the law reads. And a great example that you did in class was raise your hands if you know what notwithstanding means. Not one hand went up with 50 people in the room.
Yeah.
And when you broke it down, it's basically in spite of. So the way it reads, right? I mean, we're not attorneys. That's attorney talk. We're cops. We see that word. We're just going to skim past it and keep reading, but it basically means in spite of. So if you don't have a true understanding of the law, what that does, like anything in life, it just creates a little bit of doubt, which leads to hesitation. And then that's where problems arise. So you talked a bit about the briefing room. And can you talk a little bit more about how it actually works that most people might not understand? Like, for example, if you were to explain this to some risk managers or community members, because what the public kind of maybe misunderstand a little bit is when you're a supervisor, you're tasked with conducting briefings, but you have to be prepared. And with life and with work and with kids and all these different little competing demands going on with, supervisors in the real world, and then they hustle to work, get through traffic. Their job is to have something prepared for briefing. And oftentimes they really don't. So can you kind of break that down a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So in law enforcement, when you promote from corporal or senior deputy up to the rank of sergeant, generally you are simply promoted and now you're responsible for a bunch of people. And you're not given a whole lot of training or resources with which to show you how to do that job. And so mostly you're just doing what the last sergeant you had did, or maybe a sergeant you really liked throughout your career. You're doing the things that they did. And where that comes into play with a briefing or roll call is you have this team that you're responsible for, and you're probably expected to talk about what's going on the last shift, what's going on within the city, and then do some form of training. But you're given no resources with which to do that training. So almost 100%, because, I have a lot of contact now with agencies all over, almost 100%, if you don't give supervisors the resources, they either don't do any training whatsoever, or they turn to YouTube and they watch shooting videos. And so if they're doing training, they're just doing training on shooting videos. We can make that a much more productive time by, if you were motivated as a supervisor to put together your own training, it takes you a lot of time. Some of our training, if you're going to put together body camera footage combined with footage of the court speaking to the attorneys, combined with the quotes directly from the court, combined with what we should do in order to comply, it would take a supervisor days to develop one training. So instead, what if we created a company that was doing that for supervisors all over the state of California and now the nation, and all the individual supervisors have to do is log in and press play. And so that's what we do. We provide them the resources. We provide them with a game plan, a 4-step plan for how to run a professional briefing or roll call session. And then the 4th step of that plan is providing training. And so for the training, all they have to do is log in, press play, and they have all the resources there for them. They have a professionally produced training video, a key points worksheet, which gives them 3 questions based on Bloom's taxonomy from simple to complex, so that they can generate discussion. We're just trying to start a discussion on the team about okay, now how can we take this information and apply it to what we're doing in the future so that we stay in compliance with the law. And then they also get whatever resources were used, because our training isn't our opinion. It's just the facts. It's just what the law is. So if we're using one court case or 5 court cases or a CalCrim or an assembly bill or a statutory code, they get that in the resources so they can refer to it if they want to read more about that topic.
Yeah. What I love about it too is you have the questions already outlined. So the supervisor doesn't have to prepare anything for facilitation or discussion.
Yeah.
So
You literally don't have to do any preparation before your briefing session whatsoever. You just log in during briefing and press play.
just out of curiosity, I know you've made, just a ton of videos related to the briefing room platform, but what, in your opinion, what was the most impactful one that you think impacted the field?
I would say, I mean, I have my favorites, ones we put a lot of effort into, ones that teach things like, does a stale misdemeanor actually exist? Is that actually a thing or not a thing? And those are all, legends within law enforcement that proliferate. And so we're just looking into what's really true and what's not. And there's a ton of those, and there's videos detailed on Penal Code 835A, which is California's penal code on using force. But I would say the most impactful ones are the ones where we have received the most feedback from agencies. And they're generally the ones that challenge conventional knowledge. So things like, can you point your firearm at the occupants of a stolen vehicle, was very impactful throughout the state. One of the most recent topics we've done, but we have multiple videos on it, is whether or not you can tow a vehicle simply because state law says you can. And the answer is no, you cannot. You also have to comply with federal Fourth Amendment requirements for a warrant or an exception to the warrant requirement. And that is essentially never taught within law enforcement. So challenging conventional wisdom, taking on these controversial topics where, sure, some people get mad and they want to shoot the messenger, and say things that don't make sense, like they're just not going to comply with it, or it must be wrong or whatever. We're willing to take on those topics and that criticism to say, look, this is what the truth is. These are the direct quotes from the court. And on our recent webinar on the towing topic, I showed 30 cases which all say the exact same thing dating back to the 70s. You can't argue with that. Ultimately you have to say, okay, we have to comply with this. It might challenge the way that I was taught. The way that I was taught to conduct high-risk traffic stops was to point my firearm at everybody and take them all into custody and go through the whole process that you're taught. But that's not the way the courts see it. So once we get through to people, and so now we're avoiding getting sued over completely preventable topics. We're avoiding losing court cases because we searched a car or something that couldn't be searched, or maybe we could have done it another way and actually stayed in compliance with the law, and now that person can be prosecuted. And at the end of the day, even if it upsets you, why would you want to do something that gives a criminal $20,000 payout, a $30,000 payout, or $1 million payout, when if you had just stayed a little more knowledgeable, you could have avoided that and successfully prosecuted that person to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah. I mean, everything you're talking about, I'm just thinking back to, back in the day when I was out there, and, I'm a strong proponent of leadership development. And I like when people lead up and down and bilateral, across the chain of command. And I think that's just how, everybody kind of gets aligned with the overall mission. But I also know how things roll in the real world. So when you're leading up the chain, like what would be your advice to somebody out there who may have, some impactful knowledge that affects the agency, or maybe a shift that's having some problems, or whatever the case, and they're relaying their message up the chain and supporting it with factual information, but he or she meets resistance?
Mm-hmm. Boy, I have experienced that plenty of times. And I meet cops all the time that are dealing with that very, very same problem. And it is very challenging. There are times at which you feel like you're risking your entire career just to do what's right. And that's a super challenging situation. First and foremost, what I've learned is don't try to make giant change all at once. Like don't bring some, if this is a huge change for your agency, don't put the expectations on yourself or your agency that you're going to make this huge leap right away if you don't have an administration that is accustomed to innovation and new things and learning and open to that. If you do have that, man, that's great. That's a great position to be in. But you do get a lot of traditionalists that can be in administration, and they don't want to change anything. They just want to do what they've always done, and to them that's safe. And they personally haven't been sued for it yet, and so they want to continue with that. That puts you in a predicament, because when you're out in the field doing something and that violates somebody's constitutional rights or the law, statutory law, you're responsible for that. That administrator who's sitting in their office, they're not responsible for those actions. You are, right? So you have to be able to professionally explain your position, use direct quotes, authoritative quotes from whatever source you are using. And then when somebody pushes back, hear them out, because maybe you are wrong. You have to be open to that. So what I developed for myself was the saying, here's what I found. I thought this was interesting. What you were saying is interesting to me. Can you please provide me with the resources so I can learn more? And almost inevitably, either they can, and you learn and you go, oh, I hadn't looked at it from that perspective. So maybe that is correct. And that's entirely possible. But usually if you've well researched it and you're bringing the sources, they cannot provide you with the sources back. Right. And so you're not directly challenging them. Instead, you're saying, I'm open to hearing what you say, but can you please give me some sources so I can read up on that? And when they can't do that, typically they are willing to come around to your side, unless they're going to be extremely hard-headed, in which case you're probably not going to get anywhere in that position. But you can start affecting other people, your peers. Let's say you're a sergeant, or let's go the hardest route. Let's say you're an officer and you found this thing and you got to go all the way up the chain. You can start affecting your other officers and say, hey, have you seen this? What do you think about that? And other ones, and start working laterally, and then work your way up from there, and just give it time to make change. Because sometimes in law enforcement, man, the true traditionalists that do not want to change anything, it can take a very long time to get them to come around. But as they start seeing it from this angle and that angle, and this person brings it up and that person brings it up, there's no way they can stick with that mindset.
I agree with you. That's what helps kind of shift culture a little bit, those little micro changes. But the takeaway for me on what you said was just lead yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Study, research, prepare, practice, visualize, all of those things. And then how things play out after that is another conversation.
Yeah, we call them champions. So we're always looking for champions, people within an agency that are looking for change, looking for improvement, looking to be exceptional. And so for us, we call them champions. Like we'll say like, hey man, thanks for being a champion. Thanks for being a true leader within your agency. And I'm not talking about being a commander. I'm not talking about being a lieutenant. I'm talking about whatever rank you are. You could be the chief, you could be an officer, anything in between. Thank you for being a true leader, who's willing to put yourself out there, put in a little bit of effort, and make improvement within your agency. Those are the people we need. Those are the people that bring us into the future, and make this the successful, super fun, incredible career that it can be.
Yeah. So Jason, I talked in the opening about the concept of risk management. So I'm going to do my professor thing just for a second here. Risk management is made up of kind of two parts, right? There's the risk control side, which I think your program is amazing for, right? Helping people manage the risk and understand sort of how the laws apply to their policy and all those different types of things. And then there's the risk financing part. So if they do are alleged to have done something wrong and have a lawsuit against them, how are those things paid for? And so that's what karma is all about. And again, karma is made up of 160 agencies. 120 of them have police departments. And so the board of directors for karma for this year decided to purchase your services, right, for every single police department that we oversee. 120 different agencies are now going to have the briefing room so they can use that every day, with the idea that it's going to help reduce exposures, but also help with safety for officers, making sure that they're doing what they should be doing out there. So how does your program connect up with these different types of concepts, not only protecting officer safety, protecting public safety, reducing liability, sort of those three concepts? How would you answer that?
Yeah. So let's use the training that officers get in California related to use of force as one example. So every 2 years, officers ranks sergeant and below are required to get 4 hours of use of force training. So every 2 years, 4 hours of use of force training. Within that outline from the state, they are required to learn about 3 cases, 2 cases from the 1980s and 1 case from 2013. So 3 cases. Every 2 years, those same 3 cases. If you look at the number of cases that come out each year, it is absolutely extensive. In the course of my career, I went through the academy in 1999. In the course of my career, hundreds and hundreds of cases came out related to use of force that I was never trained in and never knew anything about. But and my agency didn't teach me about those. The state didn't provide any training about those. There wasn't a magical attorney that did a write-up on 99.9% of those cases. Nothing. They just went into nowhere land. But who did hold me accountable to those that I had no clue about were the courts. So if I violated anything that those courts said and I got sued or prosecuted about it, they would hold me to that standard of what they said in that case from 2005 that some officer did up somewhere in Northern California that I had absolutely no idea about. So the predicament that we're in today is there's a lot of mistakes that were made throughout the history of law enforcement, mistakes that were made, all these kind of things. And we got away with it because we were never recorded. We were never, it was hard to go back in the past and show what these people did. But now everyone has a camera in their pocket. We're wearing cameras on our chest. Our cars have cameras on the dashboard. The house across the street has a Ring camera on it. So we're being recorded everywhere we go. I went to a call for service recently. It was a party call, and we were dealing with them and everything was fine. And then we went, and they had a really nice classic car outside, and I was like, "Oh wow, look at this car! This thing's really cool." Yeah, and I was talking to the owner about it, and then I looked up. There must have been 8 cameras on me, all over the place. Just people with their cell phones out, just recording across the street, even recording, waiting for something to happen. We're on camera all the time in everything we do. And so the predicament we're in is, how do we train our people, not just in the cases from the past, but the new ones that keep stacking up and stacking up and stacking up? The only way to do that is to bring in your supervisors and to have them train in the core concepts of these cases with their teams. There's no financial method in which we can bring everybody into classes and train them on this, and it's just not possible. So that the briefing room makes it easy for your supervisors to have this amazing database of all these training videos and ones that come out, because every week we release 2 more. This amazing database with which to say, hey, let's train on this one simple topic. Hey, can we, if we end up in a foot pursuit and they possibly run into this one house and it takes us 9 minutes to set up a perimeter, can we still enter that house without a warrant, or do we now need to get a warrant because of a 9-minute delay? Let's do some training on that real quick, and let's see what the court said. super powerful, much more educational than let's watch another shooting video from the East Coast and talk about, the tactics that the officer did. Not to say that's not valuable, but we don't need that every single day. We're not in shootings every single day. We are making decisions on people's constitutional rights every single day.
That's so interesting. You're talking about how things have changed since body-worn cameras and car cameras and things, but it aligns directly with what we're seeing. It's just this huge rise in the cost of liabilities. And one of our focuses is trying to help all the officers and the police departments understand that connection and how it impacts them. Every exit on the freeway now, there's a billboard for a plaintiff's attorney that's taken on cases like these that are out there. Do you think there's a possibility of utilizing the briefing room to help officers understand a little bit more about the connection between the liabilities and how it impacts their departments and the financing side of it? Because we're always talking amongst ourselves. And back when Rob and Brian were doing things, that there was never any communication. When the city would get sued, they might be deposed. They'd never get an understanding of what happened with the case or how it impacted the city. I know it's a little bit of a stretch from the day-to-day stuff you're doing, but it seems like it's all connected these days, and people need to understand that side of it.
Yeah, it's not a stretch at all. A great example is the towing authority one that I talked about earlier, that you must have an exception to the warrant requirement to tow a vehicle. When we put out our latest video about that, there were some comments back like, well, I don't care if the city gets sued. That's not my fault, or I'm not having to pay that. And then we got from when we did our webinar on it, we got LA County's county council on there, and he goes, "Well, no, wait a second. Even if the risk pool pays it, or the county agrees to pay the settlement, you can also get charged with a $25,000 penalty for violating somebody's constitutional rights." So we do quite regularly try to explain to them why this matters to you. It's not just some mythical money that just comes out of nowhere and goes nowhere. You may have done something, maybe you didn't have to pay it, but what you did resulted in this person who is not the greatest human being in society. And now this guy's getting a $75,000 check because of, what you did. There's settlements in the tens of millions of dollars for people that are just like the dregs of society. Do you want to have that result? And then of course there's if that money's coming out of your budget or your city's rates are going up, that's coming out of your budget. So now you're not getting the tools that you need when you're asking for things. So there are a lot of ways that these judgments do affect officers, not even talking about criminal prosecution against officers in California, which also happens. There's a lot of ways that affect them. We do try to utilize them. I'm also working with Rob Patton. We're going to do an interesting presentation at CalFIA that takes, which is the California Force Instructors Association. And it takes real data that Karma is experiencing and saying, hey, look, this is real actual numbers that this entity is paying out for. Let's look at the law behind what these actions were, and let's see how we can train our people so they can avoid these lawsuits. Another thing I like to point out in my use of force classes a lot is sometimes when we see officers getting qualified immunity or summary judgment, we're like, oh yeah, look at that. The Ninth Circuit of the Supreme Court supports officers, and they support what the officer did, and they got qualified immunity. That's great. Nobody talks about the 5 to 10 years that officer spent going through this lawsuit and depositions and possible discipline from their agency and getting divorced from their spouse and gaining weight and health problems and all the stress that guy went through going through that whole process, when sometimes we just have the ability to walk away from an incident and just go get a cup of coffee, and not go kick their door in because they're suicidal inside their house, and we feel like we have to save them. So there are a lot of ways that these the information we get from these cases can positively and do positively affect the lives of officers and the lives of the people within our community, which is ultimately the reason that we're here and why most of us got into this profession.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. That's the beautiful thing about our partnership. Now we come together, we're synced. We kick the day off with intros and a quick background about the topics you just discussed. And the reason why is my partner, Brian Rogers, and Brian, we recently brought on board to our team to help assist with training and our entire mission. We have that opportunity to have those discussions about, man, back in the day, nobody worried about where the money came from on payouts, nor did we know if we were involved in a case and it was settled. So there's no opportunity to debrief, coach, mentor, maybe tighten up our game a little bit. And we just kind of go down our path.
I don't think people realize that when a lawsuit gets settled, it gets swept under the rug for the most part. Even the agency doesn't train on it, which is a horrible practice that we do, where we don't learn from the mistakes that we make. Sorry to cut you off. That's a huge problem in most agencies.
Yeah, no worries. That's what I love about our relationship with this collaboration. It rings true to Brian and I. I know for a fact it rings true with the field only because now I'm in a position after our trainings with you to get feedback from the field. Or when we're putting together our training calendar and they see that you're on the calendar and messages from chiefs of police or command staff on the fact that we partnered with you to pay for your services for all the agencies that we serve. So the gratification, or not gratification, just people are just grateful for that opportunity alone because they see the value in exactly what we're talking about. And I think over time, we're going to see some significant change because these younger officers coming up, they're not like how we were, man. They're kind of wild and dialed a little bit. So when they have a product like yours out there, to synthesize with their mindset, then great things can happen. And I don't know, I kind of get a little fired up about it. I don't know if you can tell or not, but
this generation coming up, a lot of people like to complain about them. I completely disagree. They are way smarter than we were when we came in.
Yeah.
They have a hunger to learn. They have a hunger to do things right. They're watching. They see social media. They came up with social media. They see it all the time. They see officers doing dumb things on videos all the time, and the backlash that comes from that. And a lot of them, they want to learn. They're hungry for it. But they want to learn in a modern fashion. They're not looking to read a 6-page dissertation from an attorney on something or watch a 2-hour-long post video that you have to click on little certain spaces within the video in order to progress, and it's all hidden on there and you're frustrated. Like enough, when you give them the tools, they pick it up and they run with it. So absolutely. And we are super thankful for Karma. Karma is doing some amazing, innovative things that I am very appreciative of. When we first started the briefing room, we were hoping for great relationships within the risk pool insurance industry, and Karma is just a great one. Some of the work you guys are doing, the resources you're providing your agencies, I think it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And, for our viewership, it's everything we provide to the field is at no cost to the agencies, the officers who attend our training, the programs we offer. This is Karma. And really it's because we care. And speaking of champions, Rob Kramer is not a paper champion. He's the one who had the vision to realize what was happening in that industry, the risk management industry, with just these payouts, increasing since George Floyd threefold. Now we're in the fourfold phase. So we got a lot of work to do, but I think it's folks like you, a little bit of us, tiny little bit of us, but basically collectively, I think it can happen if everyone's on the same page. I had a question here, but I think you answered it. It's like, who typically benefits the most from your training? But I think just in listening and talking with you, everyone can. I don't care if you're if you can elaborate a little bit on more on
we
that.
haven't even talked about officer morale, because that's a huge issue. And if you want horrible officer morale, don't give them any resources, any training. Send them out in the field. Force them to make decisions. Force a 24-year-old with a gun, a taser, pepper spray, and a rip hobble and handcuffs to make decisions in the field with minimal training. And then when you feel they get it wrong, discipline them over that. And when they bring cases to you or new information, shut them down right away. And don't hear them out. That's the reality that happens on some agencies. If you want great morale, one of the most amazing things in the field is to be on a call for service. A grown adult in his mother's house, hiding in the bedroom after he got kicked out, and she got a restraining order against him, but it hasn't been served yet. Can I kick that door open and grab him and throw him out of the house or not? If you want great officer morale, give that officer the tools to have seen training on that topic 3 weeks prior. And now the officers on scene know exactly what they can do. And there's nobody that can argue with them. There's nobody that can say, no, you can't do this, or yes, you can. They know the answer because they heard it directly from the court. So when you're on scene of a call and you have heard exactly what the court says about this, you can have some First Amendment auditor telling you whatever they want to tell you. You can have people arguing with you. It doesn't matter. You feel completely empowered because you know exactly what you can and can't do, and whether or not you need to walk away from this thing or no, it's time to enforce this thing. And this guy's going to jail, and I know exactly what to do. That is truly empowering and really builds morale when they know exactly what they can and cannot do, or they know, I think there's something on this, let me research it, and they have a database they can search and find it immediately. So officer morale is another huge part of it, not even talking about the financial side, the criminal side, avoiding internal affairs investigations, just improving morale. And then the service to your community and how much more professional your officers behave and treat people, and what that does to your agency's reputation. There's just so many reasons to make sure that your agency, your officers are getting the training that they need and that it's effective. There's not just checking the box. It's truly effective, that they retain the information and they can apply it.
So it's so interesting the way you just explained there, because historically, these risk management, risk control type projects, first they have to pass the smell test. Like, you can understand just in the way you talk about the briefing room, how all those things can impact officer safety, public safety, all those different types of things that you just talked about. The question always comes up in risk management is like, what's the ultimate impact, right? The financial impact. How do we show the return on investment for purchasing the briefing room, which is a harder thing. But we do need to think about that these days, right? Because we need to, make sure that the Karma Board of Directors continues down the path that they're doing with respect to providing resources to reduce liabilities. But how do we show it stops something, right? So I think we're going to need to connect with you and other pools that are accessing your services and members with, how often people are using it, and hopefully they're doing it, routinely like they're supposed to. Has that had an impact on reducing liabilities? And so we have our guru, Brian Rogers, who's listening in, who's going to be our data guy. But that's part of what we're going to be doing at Karma, is all these different things we're bringing to him, whether it's the trainings that Rob and Brian are doing or the briefing room that you're providing. How does that impact over time a reduction in these liabilities and safety for officers, those types of things? So how can we work together more on that going forward, do you think?
Yeah, so the briefing room, the people that came on the briefing room early know it as just a list of videos. So it was just we had no idea would anybody purchase this or not? Would it be successful? We just had a list of videos basically, and you would just go down the list. And since then, as we grow, now 80% of the agencies in California are subscribed to the briefing room. So now we have our own platform. So we saw how people were using it. We built our own platform, and now we have a platform built specifically for briefing or roll call training. And within that is record keeping. So agencies are able to keep records. And we have our brand new records dashboard that we just launched. We soft launched it 2 weeks ago. So it's on the platform, but we just haven't told people about it. And now you can see in real time, real data in graph format, who's using it, who's not, who do we need to get on. The briefing room also has a customer success coordinator, someone whose full-time job is just to monitor usage within the agencies and notify them when there's improvements that can be made. And we have learned over time, we're just cops. We're literally a company just founded by law enforcement that are working in the field, So as we learn over time, this is how we get agencies onboarded. This is how we make them successful. This is how we make the sergeants successful. So data-wise, you can certainly see who is using it and who needs a little more help. But the most effective, the most amazing feedback for usage is what we get from our users. So we always have, right before I got on here, I got an email from a large agency that's using it from the training coordinator, and he was thanking us for putting together such effective platform, and that they want to see more. They want to engage us for even more videos. So we get that all the time, but some of the most impressive ones are, I was at another risk pool meeting for chiefs, and one of the chiefs in California got up and he told a story about a video we did it's about officers responding to a call of a woman locked in her bathroom, and her boyfriend is on the outside of the bathroom with a knife, and there's blood everywhere, and he's trying to kick the door in, and she's on the phone with 911. So officers get there and they make what the courts would consider to be a bunch of mistakes. They don't game plan before they go up to the door. They don't bring any tools to break the door open with. They only bring lethal options with them. They don't assign roles for who's going to be hands, who's going to be taser, who's going to be communication, all this stuff. And so that plays out. They give a bunch of conflicting commands and they shoot this guy within seconds. So we do a whole training on that. We explain how to avoid that, things to do, slow it down just a few seconds, assign roles, bring a RAM with you, bring a shield with you, assign who's going to be communication, who's going to be hands, that kind of stuff. And so these officers on his agency, they watch this training, and 2 hours later, they're involved in the exact same scenario. So they get this exact same call and they had just trained it. So they do everything. They do all that. They bring multiple tools, one person's communication, all that. They get to the door. They hit it once. The door pops open because they have the proper tool, a RAM. The guy's standing right there with the knife. One person gives him exact commands on what to do. He doesn't do it. The person on taser hits him with the taser. He goes down and they handcuff him. That's it. Now there's nobody knows about that incident. There's no news story on it. There's no riots in the street. There's no lawsuits. There's no attempts to prosecute any officers. There's no person in the community who got shot by the police. There's no trauma that the officers are going through over having had to shoot somebody. That's it. They ended the incident and it's nowhere. So that is the true result that we are looking for. And we do see it throughout the state, but you're right. Rob, how do you quantify that? When you avoid something, that's a hard thing to quantify, but we know it exists. And simply by talking to your agencies, you'll hear that exists.
Kramer, one quick question for our viewers is: how long does it typically take from our perspective to to where we have a claim, it's either settled or it goes to court or whatever. Like, what's the timeline from the incident occurring and the outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's depends, right? It depends how severe the incident is, right? If it's something rather simple, those things take a normal process. It could take about a year, to go through. But if it's something that's really severe, there's all kinds of experts and all these different types of things that have to be developed for cases, and these cases can last for 3, 4, 5 years, right? Before you, and then maybe there's an appeal or those types of things. So some of these cases for excess liability that karma covers end up lasting 3, 4, 5 years. So we won't know the impact on some of the things we're doing for that long. Although at the primary level, they'll probably know faster, right? Whether they're reducing the frequency of these types of things. Maybe not the severe ones that we manage, but the frequency for sure. We ought to be able to figure out if it's impacting that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's important for our viewers to understand. And I say that only because our team here at Karma is new. 3 years and some change. But when we first started, we were focused on one program only. It was the Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement program to help shift culture a little bit in decision-making with peer intervention and all that good stuff, effective communication. And it's a fantastic program. But after about 1.5 to 2 years, we realized we need to offer more. So we revised our strategy, went to the board of directors. They approved, gave us a little bit more money for training. It created Brian Rogers' position. And so that has only been less than 1 year in what we've been doing with our new strategy. So I asked Rob Kramer that question because I would like to give our viewers some perspective on measuring some of the things we're working on and how it could take anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So there's going to be a little bit of time lapse there before we can really measure the success of what we're doing, but we're going to keep chipping away. And then Jason, there's a couple things I wanted to point out. Throughout this interview, you've mentioned professionalism numerous times, and you look at other careers, even professional athletes, and the level of professionalism is at the highest level. Accountability, preparation, watching film, breaking someone's, like with an athlete, you're breaking down what they're doing and everything related to that play or the overall game. And so just the expectations are super high. And with that in law enforcement, we are the professionals. There's so much more at stake. And I think sometimes we lose that. We get off that path of our level of professionalism, but it goes back to what you've been also talking about with decision making and knowing the law, knowing the parameters, and that builds that confidence, which goes to what you're talking about with culture. So it's exciting to know that you have your product out there that'll help individuals and agencies level up their skills, their confidence, so that they can be more competent into the field, have that sphere of influence within their little microcosm, and creating some of that change in mindset. So it's all based on decision making and it being prepared for those moments. So my question to you is, what do you think separates average decision makers from elite ones under pressure?
Ooh, that's a loaded question right there. I think it starts with your preparation. I think it starts with acknowledging that you don't know everything. You can't be an expert in everything. And what kind of training have you put into preparing yourself the best you can? You and your team, preparing them, everybody, the best that you can. And then when you're in the moment, you're talking about like an active situation, like a hostage situation, or are you talking about just general decisions like about a daily event or
it can range. It can range anywhere from towing a car to a high stress critical incident that's unfolding.
Yeah,
like just general decision making across the board.
It has to start with educating yourself and making sure that your team is educated and making sure that everybody is on the same page about exactly how you're going to respond to a situation, and having setting a tone where it's okay to bring up your opinion. It's okay to, if you see something wrong here as a sergeant, if you see me setting something up and you're like, oh, I don't think the sergeant's thought about this. You need to bring that up to me. I will be pissed at you if you don't bring that up to me, versus the opposite, that we've all worked for people where they want everybody to shut up and just do what they say. And now you have people that are seeing things that you can't see. And they're just too scared to say anything or bring anything up to you. So it's about setting that positive culture within your team, that we're a team. Just because I'm the sergeant or the commander or the chief doesn't mean that I can see everything. I need everybody to be there and provide input. At the end of the day, understand I am going to make a decision, and it may not be what you wanted, but I promise you, I will take what you say into true consideration, and make that decision on the fly. And I think by starting with your preparation and developing a team that loves coming to work and loves engaging in new information and adjusting and feels like we're all in this together, and you're there with them in it, I think that is how you start it. And then you also have a culture where mistakes are okay. If you make a mistake and it's just an honest mistake, or you made the best decision you could and it wasn't the right decision, I will never, ever discipline you for it. Here in the briefing room, we have on our wall our 10 guiding principles. They're huge, as big as the wall inside of our office. And one of the top things is you need to speak up if you see something. And if something you tried failed, great, good job. We want you to be pushing the limits. And if it fails, we'll iterate and we'll fix it and we'll make it better. And that's how you get better. So I think when you're on scene to these incidents, and you're setting up your perimeter or whatever, and your team knows that they can come to you with something, and your phone rings and it's somebody on the opposite side of the perimeter, and they're like, "Hey, Sarge, hey, I see this. I think we have a hole. Right here. I think we need to get a drone out here or something." And it's like, "Hey, man, thank you so much. Boom, can I get a drone?" And then, if a mistake happens and somebody went to the wrong location or something and the suspect got away, or, whatever it is, if it's just an honest mistake, we're just going to debrief it afterward and talk about it. And I'll be the first one to fall on my sword. I make a mistake in every scenario, or things I wish I would have done better. Or the next day I'm like, damn it. Why didn't I do X, Y, Z? I was with my shift. I bring it up to them. I'm like, man, I wish. Then, the next day we're in briefing. Hey, remember that thing? God, I really wish I would have done this thing. I think it would have turned out better. What do you guys think? And then once you fall on your sword, everybody else starts doing the same thing. Yeah, I thought you said to go to this corner, and instead I went to that corner. And, okay, well, how can we improve our communication for next time? So it's just all about the preparation you do and the culture you set within your team. And I think that's how you ultimately, you might go up and down, but ultimately you're getting better and better and improving. And I think that's how you do it.
Yeah, I like it. It's that extreme ownership concept, right? Where you're just, I love when leaders take accountability for their own action, and it really just opens up the door for a more effective flow of communication where everybody starts owning their mistakes. And now you're starting to affect some change because you're having some honest conversations about what happened and how we can get better for the next round.
Yeah, totally agree. There are some great leaders out there in law enforcement. We're a lot of them, they're attracted to the briefing room. That's what they're, we're very like-minded. There's just so many great leaders out there that are really pushing the envelope, trying to make things better, getting frustrated. You're not alone. Don't feel alone if you're frustrated because you have some, commander stuck in the 90s on your agency, and they're refusing to budge. We need everybody who's a good, solid leader that wants to set a positive agency culture, to know you're not alone. Stand firm and do what's right. And this younger generation, they appreciate it and they want to see more of that.
100%. Another question I have for you is from a risk management perspective. And now I hope we don't lose any viewers when I say risk management, because it's pretty much a buzzkill in law enforcement whenever you bring that term up. But the job that, the officers, in my opinion, is the toughest job in America. And so with that, it's an inherently risky occupation. So we have to have these conversations. But from a risk management perspective, I'm curious what you think on that. Like, what's one thing leaders at all levels can immediately do better, today? Like, what is one thing that leaders can do that's better for the profession from a risk management perspective?
Yeah, have open communication with everybody on your agency. You're no better than anybody else. You're here to serve. But from a sergeant perspective, mine was I'm here to serve these deputies. These people at their rank. I'm here to serve them because that serves the community. And I think it starts with having open communication, because they're going to start telling you the things that are broken. When they're not afraid to talk to you, they will start telling you the things that are broken. They will start having conversations with you about this one person who's doing this sort of thing that you maybe want to shut down. They're going to tell you about mistakes that are made. And when you start hearing that real information, not the fake stuff, because you walk into the room and everybody just quiets down or doesn't say anything, or you ask for feedback and one person raises their hand and barely says anything, those are all warning signs to me. To me, everybody should be like you walk into the room and nothing changes. The conversation doesn't change. And they're telling you real stuff. To me, that's the biggest, that's how you make positive change. And that's how you mitigate true risk, because they're the ones seeing everything. You're not seeing it when you're sitting in your office, or you're not out in the field, or all those things that they are seeing it. So once they start telling you, now you know what you can adjust and the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Hey, what a great exchange of information. Thank you so much, Jason, for being on. We appreciate it. As we mentioned earlier, Karma is for all our 120 plus agencies that have police departments, is getting the briefing room paid for starting July 1st. If you have any questions about that whatsoever, please reach out to our team, Rob Patton and Brian Rogers. You can also go to www.karmajpa to find out upcoming trainings, different things that they're doing, or just get connected with them. But we are so excited to work with you, Jason, going forward, and with the briefing room. And we're looking forward to a long relationship and getting this rolling with all the departments. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your support.
Absolutely. And then lastly, where could people find you, Jason? How could they get a hold of you, more in touch with you?
Yeah, go to thebriefingroom.com. And you can reach out to us from there. You can see more about us. You can watch a video about what we do, and you can contact us from there as well.
Right on. Well, hey, man, thanks again for your time. We know you're a busy man, but look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at some training we're having, and keep getting after it, my friend.
Great. Thank you, guys.